Thank you for joining us once again as we talk NFL offseason 2026. And today we talk about the Houston Texans. And that means Cole Thompson joins us from the Texans Wire. How's it going, Cole?
Brother, I am watching currently a 1-1 tie between the United States and Latvia. And
I hope it's in the first period.
I am losing my mind as 2 goals have been taken off of the board. And Connor Hellebuck has given up a single play that, honestly, he should have given up a second goal at that point. But this is my lifestyle living in Houston. Nobody understands how invested I am in what the United States is doing right now. And I'm like, I need more people to understand just how important a game like this means. When it means absolutely nothing, but it absolutely means everything.
Yeah, they're probably favored by 3 or 4 goals probably going in. What period is it?
I just started the second.
Okay, they got time. Yeah, hockey, right? But hey, it's Olympic hockey.
Greg, Canada won 5-0 today. I need to make sure that the United States at least makes it seem competent at that point. That's all I'm asking for. If you have a 4-0 Switzerland win and a 5-0 Canada win, and you're supposed to be the second best team in the tournament, if not the best team in the tournament, you got to at least make it something like 6-1 at this point.
Well, after what happened last year, there's no doubt about it. If we play them in the medal rounds, and we better get a win. So I don't think we're going to be satisfied after what happened last year. That's for sure. But we got a little ways to go there. What is the round in about 10 days or something like that, right? 8 days, I think. So we got time.
A little bit of time, but nothing crazy yet.
I'm just glad you didn't say when you were, because I kind of felt you were about to say something Olympic related, since you were about to touch up on something that's happening now, and I didn't think you were going to say golf. So no. I was just saying, please don't say curling. And when you said hockey, I was like, all right, good. Thank goodness.
Greg, what are we doing? Curling right now. The United States pulled off one of the biggest upsets in the quarterfinals. I mean, come on, man. This is the world we live in.
Curling upsets. Okay. Well, anyway, we're talking football here today. I'm glad most of the viewers are happy about that, even though the Super Bowl is over. And, man, right off the bat, how aggravating must it be for Texan fans to have watched that Super Bowl and watch the way the Patriots played, knowing that they had come so close, the Nico Collins injury, the Dalton Schultz injury, and just the inexplicable play of their quarterback. So let's start there. How are the fans feeling at this point in time?
You know, it was really interesting, Greg. I think that most people in Houston had kind of calmed down by the time that kickoff had began, because of you're sitting there and you're saying, well, there's nothing we could have done. The Patriots, they earned their way to the Super Bowl. It was like we had 3 weeks off. It's fine. And then to watch is once again a defense that is almost as elite as yours, but not as elite as yours. And the worst part is that Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the 49ers, goes on NBC and he says, there's only 2 teams out there that you could probably trust they'll be able to win by defensive numbers alone. And the Texans were one of them. And then to see how poorly Drake May played, how bad the offensive line was, and how much you did the exact same thing to that offense when you faced off against them in the divisional round, but your quarterback had more turnovers. A pent-up aggression grew. There were riots in the streets. The police had to get involved. Multiple family members had to talk individuals off of the ledge.
Sure.
There were many people who were depressed. Alcoholism has grown up entirely in this state in the last, 2 months, 2 days. So it's been a rough time. I think it shows you where Texans fans are now very annoyed because of they had this one. I think that everyone knew they had this one. I think that everyone felt very confident that even if they weren't going to win the whole thing, because I'll be real with you, Greg, I don't think Houston would beat Seattle either. I think that maybe it would have been a closer game, but Seattle still would have found their way to hoist up a Lombardi trophy. I said for weeks that I thought that the LA-Seattle game was going to be the deciding factor of who.
Yeah, the NFC was better than the AFC. Yeah.
But I think it's just the fact of you've never been to an AFC title game. You've never been to a Super Bowl. If you beat Denver, your defense is going to be able to shut down Jarrett Stidham. Oh, yeah. I think that when you add it all together, it just led to more frustrations of, if that was the performance that we were going to see in the big game, why was that at least us there?
Well, I think look, it's all about, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's all about CJ Stroud. And so were you, especially after the way he played the week before, were you really surprised that he played so poorly in New England, or based on his previous playoff history on the road in week 2 of the playoffs and the way that he got off to a bad start the week prior, was this like starting to get like an ongoing thing with him where a lot of fans went into the New England game kind of feeling a little nervous?
No, I think that most people actually thought you got the bad game out of the way. It can only go up from here, because if you had a 3 turnover performance against the Steelers and you still won 30-6. And so I think at that point, everyone kind of realized, listen, we just need to see our offense be dynamic enough to get in field goal range for Kaimi Fairbairn, and we are confident.
Just how Seattle beat New England. Exactly how Seattle beat New England.
That's quite literally all you were asking for is a performance of, hey, don't turn the football over, find your open receivers, get inside the 50 and call it a day. Mm-hmm. Like that was really that most people's game plan of CJ can't have a worse performance. And even if he has a turnover or two, as long as you're able to get 2 or 3 drives that end with really solid field goals from your kicker, you're going to go on to the AFC Championship game. And I want to give a little bit of credit to Drake May because he had 3 turnovers, but he also had 3 good touchdown passes. The 4th down pass to Pop Douglas, the big touchdown pass to Kayshon Boutte to kind of close things on out in the 32-yard strike. He made some plays, but the Texans just made it clear that we're going to give you opportunities to work for short field position, to get a pick 6, to take away points off of the board with the Woody Marks fumble in the 3rd quarter. And we're going to kind of give this game to you on a silver platter and let you kind of feast afterwards and show Denver that maybe you mean a little bit of business. That was really the game plan. A lot of Texans fans, I think, were very frustrated because they figured CJ, after having the performance he did, would find a way to kind of mitigate those flaws.
Yeah.
Say that, listen, I'm not going to try to do too much. And it was some of those plays that he had that you're just asking yourself, why are you making these mental mistakes? And you go back and you watch one of the interceptions, I think it was the first one to Carlton Davis. If you take the sack, it's a 3rd and 17, but it's a 3rd and 17 to where you're either going to force Tommy Townsend to come on the field 2 plays later and punt it and make New England drive it 95 yards down the field, where your defense has been playing lights out after that one drive.
Sure.
Or you're going to get at least another opportunity to maybe convert on 3rd down and keep the drive alive. But you threw it out of bounds, and the worst part is you didn't huck it out of bounds. Like some quarterbacks, you're just asking yourself, get to the next play. Throw it 50,000 miles per hour into the stands and hit a child for all we care, as long as you're able to go ahead and get to the next play. But Stroud kind of floated it out of bounds, and it stayed just enough in range for Carlton Davis to get his feet down and cause an interception. And then you talk about the pick 6. If you take the sack there, it's a 3rd and 19, but you know what it is also? It's not watching the ball just hang up in the air like it's a breadbasket and Marcus Jones running it back, going basically untouched the other way for a house call. And little things like that, it showed me 2 things. Number one, CJ Stroud and the inability to understand his pocket awareness and really be afraid to take a hit has been evident since he took the concussion against the Denver Broncos.
Okay.
But number 2, the mental mistakes that you're seeing, regression has really set on in for a quarterback that you're supposed to see progression with going into year 3. And unfortunately right now, it's what's leading to a lot of people wondering, do you have the right long-term option under center going into 2026 and beyond?
So you definitely feel that pre-concussion, there was a lot more hope, and that what might have happened after that concussion could potentially damage Stroud moving forward.
I don't think that hope is the right word. I think that there was more continuity because Stroud still didn't have a lot of mistakes. He had a couple of games where it was really, really good, like the Arizona Cardinals game. He started off hot. I thought he played well for a half against the Indianapolis Colts in Week 18. I thought he did a good job in the 4th quarter, kind of mitigating drives back against the Las Vegas Raiders. Little things like that, he did a couple good things. But the problem is that it was evident he was afraid to take some hits. And I think that concussion, because remember, he slid, and then I think it was to Hufanga that hit him in the head as he was going down. It was clear at that point that he wanted to do everything possible to not get hit again. And that's an area to where, as much as I understand from a quarterback standpoint, you got to do everything to protect your body. Sometimes protecting the football by taking a hit, it's going to sting. It's going to hurt. I mean, you're dealing with collisions on the field at 20 miles per hour. It's a car crash every play, but still, sometimes that's an easier pathway. You'll walk away and yeah, it'll be a bruise, but you'll live versus hearing on social media, you're not the guy, you're a terrible quarterback, we've wasted a season. And I don't think that part really translated. It was more so that I don't want to get hit, therefore I'm just going to throw the ball away. Oh no, we're in trouble now.
What's his contractual situation?
Well, I think if they're going to pick up the 5th-year option, it would be wise for them to, because of right now you don't have a quarterback plan going into next season or beyond that. And the crazy part is, Greg, is that like the Texans defense is so damn good and they return 10 starters and maybe all 11 if they re-sign Sheldon Rankins, that defense is going to bail you out of trouble if it stays healthy to where you're not going to be in range to draft a quarterback in 2027. So the wise thing to do would be go pick up the 5th-year option and end all contract negotiations at this point. Now, David Mulugeta, who's a smart agent, will do everything in his power to say, my client deserves to get paid because if he was the offensive rookie of the year and he set records and you have 30-plus wins underneath his belt with him leading the charge, that means something. But the Texans don't have to go ahead and sign him to any lucrative deal.
No.
And I don't think that after the performance you saw in the playoffs, Stroud's in a mindset of saying, I'm going to hold on out. I think that he also is a very, very situational aware person that understands right now is not the time for me to be in bargaining mode, no matter what my agency says. So I think that he's going to show on up and want to show on out one more time before he gets paid. The real storyline this offseason that people are going to be paying attention to is what is Will Anderson's contract? Because after finishing 2nd in Defensive Player of the Year, in a year where everyone knew Myles Garrett was going to win it, like if you thought Myles Garrett wasn't going to win it,
yeah,
I don't know what to tell you.
Sure.
But he finished 2nd, and he was the only guy with 100 other votes outside of Myles Garrett. That's going to warrant a big-time contract extension, and I think the Texans are wise to get it done now because, as you and I both know, dude, it's only going to go on up, and the contract doesn't always go to the best player. It just goes to the highest bidder. So if you're starting to see other players sign and you're still unsigned,
that's true.
It's only going to add the rate. I mean, like Sauce Gardner signed immediately after Derek Stingley Jr. got his contract extension. And I don't think anybody in this city is upset with how much Derek Stingley Jr. is getting paid compared to what Sauce Gardner was going to get. And if you waited a little bit too long, that would have been the new market price.
That's right.
And maybe you wouldn't have him sign to a long-term deal right now. So it's probably best for Nick Cassero to get ahead of the deal with Will Anderson Jr. as much as possible.
Okay, so that means Stroud has another year to prove himself.
Yeah,
and then the Texans and Davis Mills is the backup, and they just bring everybody back at quarterback, and then they have to re-examine it. Hopefully, they won't have to, but if they have to re-examine that, they'll do it after next season.
And they'll probably do it with the intent of the way I think of it is, Greg, is that if CJ is not the answer after next season, you're probably firing your offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, and bringing in a new face.
Probably.
But at that point, you're also saying, we're not banking on you to be the starter in 2027. If the right guy is available when we're on the clock or in range, we may select him. And then we'll have the conversation about trading you in the offseason. But I think that you are going into next season with a 17 game plan of he will be our guy until he proves that he is not our guy. And then after all those conversations that go on, you can ask yourself, do we have enough on the criteria to say warrant of a contract extension? But if not, and he does well enough, the other thing you can look at, Greg, is like, say, he ends up being on a franchise tag for a year. Because that could also be another thing that the Texans try to do. Because of, again, with the franchise tag, it'd be $45 million. $45 million for a one-year quarterback that still is leading into the playoffs.
That's actually okay.
Yeah. It may not be the worst thing out there at that point.
No.
While you're still trying to conduct negotiations on what is going to be the long-term asking price.
Yeah.
So really, it's technically probably 2+ years, maybe even if you want to say 3 years of control until you got to let him go. But I do think after next season, you'll have a pretty good understanding. Is he the long-term answer in Houston or not? Yeah,
and again, a lot's going to depend on health. And also, does he go back to the postseason, have a good, semi-good regular season, and then implode once again? I'm not sure they could take another one of those in the postseason, but we still have a long way to go before we get there. Okay, so draft picks. Correct me if I'm wrong. There are 8, including 9, including 2 in the second and 2 in the fourth?
2 in the second, 2 in the fourth.
Okay.
4 in the top 70 and 6 in the top 150.
That's good collateral. So is that better, a lot better than recent years, or is that on average? How is that? Because it seems like it's a lot better.
Well, remember the Texans took a risk on both the deal with the New York Giants and with the Washington Commanders this offseason, banking on them having kind of regressional seasons, and they hit on both.
Yeah.
They traded Laremy Tunsil for a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick from Washington, and Washington struggled this year. So Washington ended up getting pick number 38. So that now belongs to the Texans. So that's a top 7 pick in the 2nd round. And then they went and they gambled and gave up the 3rd-round pick to let New York move on up to select Jackson Dart at pick number 25. And they struggled again even with Jackson Dart, who had a good season.
Sure.
Had a very good season, in my opinion. But still, you struggled as a team. You got 4+ wins. That now pick belongs to Houston because of it. So, this 2 4th-round picks are really interesting because one, of course, is in the Laremy Tunsil deal. Then you also don't have your 5th-round pick. You don't have your 3rd-round pick. So, there's some trades that you look at that you say, okay, it's interesting because we don't have those selections. But you do have enough collateral to say, if you want to move on up from 28 into, I don't know, top 15 for an elite player, you can do so.
Sure.
If you want to move on up to say pick 22 or 25 and give up one of the 4th-round picks.
Oh yeah, that's easy.
You can do so. And you're doing it without actually spending a lot, where it's like the Will Anderson trade that you had to give up 3 picks, including a future first, including a 2nd rounder. There's enough to believe that you will have equity to bank on your team still being balanced going into next year.
The cap seems like it's in decent shape. I know it's under, but that's nothing. So do you think the Texans will have enough money to sign a star player or two?
Well, right now they're still under the negative money. But that changes when you go ahead and free up some contract space. They're going to release some players. The conversation.
Who do you think they could release?
Well, Joe Mixon's the big one. Joe Mixon is the big fish. If you cut him, you save over $8 million against the cap space. This is a guy that you don't know what his status is. Nick Caserio. As much as Nick Caserio, I think, has done a good job of building and orchestrating a roster and finding some really niche players. You're talking about a dude who can't give you a straight answer on something as simple as, hey, what did he do to his foot? Well, he didn't get hurt bungee jumping or, riding a dirt bike this offseason. Okay, well, the fact that you said that those were 2 things that he may have done automatically makes me assume that that's why he did hurt his foot. But we don't know what his answer is. And there was a rumor that went around that he pulled a Plaxico Burress, and it's somebody confirmed, no, he didn't do that. But everything else is still very much on the table, and they don't know if he's going to play again. So if you cut him, you save $8 million against the cap. And then Mario Edwards Jr., if you cut him, who dealt with a season-ending injury, you get $4.5 million against cap nearly. Okay. So that's already 12.5, nearly $13 million.
Yeah. Now you got about $10 million. Yep.
So you're talking about now having about $11 million of what you would have in cap space. They're going to restructure some deals with Derek Stingley Jr., I believe Titus Howard and Nico Collins, if not a few others. And then the big rumor right now that they're looking at is extending Azeez Al-Shaair and Dalton Schultz. Now, if they extend Azeez and Dalton, what they're basically doing is they're moving money that currently is going into the final year of their current contract to 2027 and adding a few extra $1 million to the end of the deal, which combined, if you make all 6 of those moves happen, and then you throw in the other moves with the release of Joe Mixon, the release of Mario Edwards Jr., you're talking about creating over $45 million in cap space, which is not at the highest level, say a team such as Seattle or the New York Jets, for instance, but it allows you to be a hard bargainer when it comes to some pieces. It allows you to almost guarantee that you're going to bring back a guy like a Sheldon Rankins. It allows you to go after a name like a Tyler Linderbaum if you want to. It allows you to go fight for a guy like a Cade Mays from Carolina. It allows you to find opportunities to strengthen up your interior offensive line and kind of have a good understanding about what your game plan is going into the draft. Because right now, there's really 4 positions that the Texans probably need to upgrade at, but you don't really know what those are until you get everybody signed on the roster when it comes to free agency. So it's still kind of up in the air on what are the things that you look at for Houston that they're going to pinpoint target. Everyone's saying, well, go get a right tackle. well, what if you think that Titus Howard is actually better suited at right tackle than he is at guard? So do you go out in free agency and spend some money on, say, like a Zion Johnson from the Los Angeles Chargers, and then you bring in a center prospect in the draft, or maybe it allows you to go pinpoint to bring in a defensive tackle prospect? So there's a lot of different ways that the Texans can go attack free agency just by making a couple moves this offseason that will free up some money.
I would guess that most fans in Houston would probably feel a lot more comfortable if they acquired a veteran offensive lineman than go back into the draft to try to find an offensive lineman, since that hasn't worked out very well for the Texans, even though Ursary looks like maybe they got one there. Interesting enough that, because I was speaking with Tony Lombardi, who covers the Ravens for the Russell Street Report, and he says, look, I'm not so sure Linderbaum's going to be back. Because they're not going to put the tag on him, and they don't have enough money. The fact is, if a team like Houston, the Jets, or whatever decide that they're going to put up big money, the Ravens will not be able to match it. And so I would have to think Houston Texans fans, if all they do in the offseason is acquire Tyler Linderbaum, it would be a success.
Yeah, but I mean, Greg, you know as well as I do. Go. Who is one of the favorite coaches of Tyler Linderbaum?
One of his favorite coaches?
Yeah. He's got a job out in New York.
Oh, of course. Yes. Well,
yeah, they're going to have the money to afford him. Who's his brother? John? Yeah. I mean, Jim, they got $83 million out.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's like I keep telling Texans fans all the time, they're like, we want Kenneth Walker and we want Tyler Linderbaum, and we're going to swing for the bat and be good. And I'm just like, you're going to settle for a trade of Tony Pollard from the Tennessee Titans and a center like Cade Mays and another veteran on a 1-year prove-it deal.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you're going to do.
Sure.
Because that's Nick Caserio's game plan. And he does it, and he's hit a lot on those type of moves, but that's what Nick does. Like, he doesn't spend money. I remember how many people, and you can call me crazy or not, but like, I remember how many people said, well, the Texans were the runner-up with the Eagles for Saquon Barkley. Like, he was almost going to be a Texan. And Greg, you and I both know the guy is from Philadelphia. I mean, the guy grew up in Pennsylvania. He played football at Penn State. The second that money even came close to what the Texans were offering, he was off the table. Like, he was not coming to Houston. And so Nick pivoted, and he found a good, contingency plan of going after a guy in Joe Mixon that was going to be released, and he said, no, I'll give you a 7th-round pick. I'll take on the rest of his contract. I'll give him 2 more years on the deal, and we'll take the risk. And it panned on out. But, like, that's the way Nick Caserio works. Ed Ingram was one of the best interior offensive linemen this year. Ed Ingram was benched last season in Minnesota for being a liability in pass coverage. And he said, I'll give you a 6th-round pick, and we'll turn him into now a guy that's going to get paid $15 million on the books. Like, that's Nick's game plan. That's what he does. And
makes sense.
And so, like, that's going to be the way that they attack free agency is they'll make a trade for a proven veteran at safety or at guard or at tackle that has 1 year left on the deal, and they'll give him a 1-year extension. And then they'll probably pan it on out and say, look at how good we were. But they're not going to go after like a Linderbaum type. Okay. I do think they will address the offensive line. Before they do anything, what they have to decide right now is what is Titus Howard's position? Because Titus Howard, they're probably going to restructure his deal. You can't cut him. If you cut him, it's like $23 million. If you cut him post-June, if you cut him, I think it's like $4 million. It's dead cap space, like $23 million.
Yeah, he's cut.
Yeah. So you're probably going to restructure his deal and maybe even extend him like a year or something like that.
Where do you think he should play?
I think guard, personally.
Okay.
I think that he had a better overall outlook at guard, but I think that there is reasons to think that there is more upside and potential of him playing tackle just because of the veteran experience.
And with Trent Brown, did you think they just try to bring him back for another year, or is that like the big question that they need to go out there also and get a right tackle? What do you think they feel most comfortable?
You could do both. I mean, you could still go out and get another right tackle and bring him back on a vet minimum, or better yet, you could go bring him back on a vet minimum and then draft a guy that you think could be the long-term tackle. Because I think at this point, it's clear that Blake Fisher's going to be your swing. He's not going to be a guy that you are seeing starting consistent reps.
And he was okay in that role, right?
I mean, he was better.
He's not a starter now, but
he was better used. So he was the tight end blocking position was so terrible that they made him the eligible receiver. So he was really like the tight end when they would run 12 personnel, but it wasn't 12 personnel. They were just bringing out an extra offensive lineman all the time. So that's what I think that his role is at this point, with a bit of swing positioning. You don't want him starting more than 2 or 3 games, but if he's got to start more 2 or 3 games, he can.
Okay.
I will say it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with that spot, because on one hand, the plan works. They can easily just go ahead and throw him into that blocking tight end position, and they'll, lo and behold, make really good overall outlook for them. But at the same time, you kind of are also sick and tired of hearing number 57 is reported as eligible. It's like, just get a blocking tight end if we're going to do it at this point. Find somebody in free agency that blocks and do it that way. And the worst part is that you have a tight ends coach as your offensive coordinator. So if anything, he should know how to attack the position this offseason on guys that are going to be able to fill in that 12 personnel look.
And maybe Seattle. Does Seattle have a blocking tight end available? Because they got like 5. Let's see. Do they have no, they don't. I guess they don't have to worry about that. Yeah, man, they have some really good blocking tight ends.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's now go over the rest of the free agents for Houston. And that's not the page I want. So we talked about Brown.
All the guys in green are free agents. So
yeah,
do it that way.
Yeah. Let's talk about the offense. Stay with the offense. So the offensive line, Ingram will definitely be a priority, correct?
He'll be a priority, but if the asking price is too much, he's going to play himself out of it. Like the Texans, you got to remind yourself, Greg, like Houston, like the way that Houston addressed Ed Ingram initially was, we got Ed Ingram. We have our 6th offensive lineman.
Okay.
And he ended up being more than that. He ended up being a really good starter, and he ended up being somebody that you could trust as a great run blocker, and he did a good job of creating opportunities in pass pro, and he graded out as one of the top 15 interior offensive linemen this year.
Yes, he did.
But it's 1 year of work. So Nick Caserio is not going to go spend $18 million on a guy with 1 year of work when he's done that before with Shaq Mason. So it's like, if you're an agent, the smart thing to do is get your client paid as much as possible.
Yeah.
If you're
someone's going to pay him.
If you're Nick Caserio, what you're banking on is having basically a Derek Barnett situation. So last season, Derek Barnett played so well down the stretch. Everyone thought that he was going to play himself into a 2-year deal for like $11 million annually. And the market wasn't there for him. Mm-hmm. So he resigns with Houston on a 1-year, like $6.5 million deal, which ends up being a really good deal as your number 3 situational pass rusher. But still, like, that's what we're talking about, is like, that's what the Texans, I think, are banking on when it comes to Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram is going to get paid.
He will. He's an offensive lineman. Yeah.
And he's an interior offensive lineman who played out of his freaking mind in run blocking this year.
Yeah.
So they'll make an offer. I don't think that the Texans are going to be able to afford him at the price that they want, nor do I think they want to pay the price that he wants it at. So you're probably hitting restart at right guard.
And they'll be able to afford Trent Brown. So do you think that's basically okay? If we don't get Ingram back, then at least we still have 3 or /4 guys that we can count on the line, which means we really just got to get 2 guys, minimum, 1 starter and 1 fringe starter. That's pretty much it.
So this is going to sound very rude, and it's not, but it also is, to kind of come off that way. I call Jake Andrews an NPC, a non-role play. I mean, yeah, an NPC, a non-playing character, like how you would when you're in a video game. Like, they're just there, like they just exist.
Yeah,
I say that because of, if I took a rep of Jake Andrews and I took a rep of Jarrett Patterson, and I took away their numbers, and they both played center, I don't think you would be able to tell the difference.
Wow.
So when that's the case, I think they're going to add in some competition. So I see them adding in 3 offensive linemen this offseason, 1 for sure starter, whether that be at center, guard, tackle, whatever it is, 1 prospect that they believe is going to be upgraded and turn into a very quality player long-term, and 1 guy that's being brought in for competition. So however you want to do that, center, guard, tackle at the competition spot, somebody is being brought in, even if you sign Trent Brown to a 1-year vet minimum deal. Somebody is going to be brought in, and they're going to do that. That way they make sure that everyone knows last season wasn't good enough for the offensive line.
It was better, but
better's not great.
Yeah, well, where they were coming from, yeah.
I say you were at rock bottom. You couldn't get much lower than where you were.
No. This was our first mock draft. Obviously, this is very early, but our top scouts, Dave Syvertson and John Cooper, made the picks. And Connor Lew, as you can see, was their selection from Auburn. So whether it winds up being Lew or not, they were right there. Exactly what you're saying. Houston more than likely will be looking at a early draft pick inside, potentially.
I would say, so for center, it's interesting because Connor Lew may end up actually being the best center in the class. But he's coming off a torn ACL, which to me makes it, I'm not taking him at pick 28. Like pick 38, we can have that conversation. But pick 28, I don't think that's where you're looking.
And that could happen. That could happen.
If you're talking pick 28, I'd be looking at probably a guy like a Caden Proctor if he were to be available from Alabama. And I say that because of you don't know where he is. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Every team is going to look at him differently. The combine numbers are going to give you a really good understanding. Caleb Lomu's one that I see right there. That's somebody that I think is absolutely going to get considerations at pick number 28 if you say you're going with a tackle. The name that has garnered a lot of interest recently, if you go just straight tackle, is Blake Miller from Clemson, the right tackle prospect.
Okay.
That's one that has gained a lot of steam around mock draft circles. And that would make a lot of sense. And then Ione right there, that's one that the Texans, like, I think that they would have to get to 22, 23.
They have to move up,
to go get them.
Yeah.
But that's why you have that second, fourth round pick. To make a move like, I'm going to give up this and I'm going to give up a sixth and my pick at 28 to go get pick number 22, to go get the guy that I think may be the best interior offensive lineman.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go through this offense and then move over to defense. So Christian Kirk, do you think he'll be back?
No. I think that they like what they have with Jalen Knoll. They like what they have with Higgins. Tank Dell's going to be back fully healthy next offseason. They've already said that he will be good to go for offseason workouts. So they'll bring in a veteran wide receiver, but he's going to be there as a wide receiver 5. They like their young core. They'll probably draft a guy like in round 4, round 5, but they like what they got in Collins, probably Dell, Higgins, and Knoll as their top 4 with Xavier Hudson filling out the role.
Are they going to bring Nick Chubb back?
As of right now, no. Anything is possible. I definitely would at least consider it. I think that he does a good job of fitting in the offense, but I think Chubb also wants to be the lead back or at least have a bigger role. Texans are going to be aggressive in the offseason, bringing in whether that be bringing in a veteran or a draft pick at pick 59 or 38. If somehow Jeremiah Love falls in a range, you maybe bring on up to go get him. I mean, that's not going to happen, but still, like, they're going to be, I think, aggressive in adding in a younger running back with, let's just be real, less wear and tear on the knees. So if he wants to go ahead and have a big role with the Texans, it's not going to happen. If he wants to have a small role and fight for reps, there's a scenario where he's back.
Yeah, look, Marks definitely did a yeoman's job. He's not a number 1. So you mentioned Walker. Do you think Houston, could their top free agent prize be a running back?
Maybe. I don't know where you go. Personally, I personally have been in the camp of, I don't think Breece Hall is going to be in your price range, number 1, if he does a free agent. So let's just throw that out there. I don't think
he's going to be available.
Yeah. I don't think that you're going to go after a Kenneth Walker. I think what's going to be really interesting is how do you want to attack free agency in the draft? Do you want to get a guy that maybe you believe can be a 3-down back, or do you believe that you can be a guy that can be like just a difference maker, change of pace guy? Because if you're going with a 3-down back, Javonte Williams and Rico Dowell will probably be the top 2 names that you look at simply because of they're coming off of good years, not elite years. And they're probably going to be around like looking for a 2-year contract. So, okay, you maybe want to pay that. But if you're looking for like a change of pace guy that can just add a little bit more validity to your backfield, I would maybe make a phone call for Kenneth Gainwell. I think that he would be a really fun guy to put in a Nick Caley offense, swing pounds out of the backfield.
Don't you think it's kind of make his Woody Marks, isn't that like kind of redundant kind of move?
That's the thing, is that you already got a Woody Marks in your backfield. So it's like that would be kind of like the same type of player.
Okay.
Maybe go after like a third down back, like a Rashad White from Tampa. Maybe go after like an A.J. Dillon that, again, not going to offer you much, but he doesn't offer you nothing. But that's what you're looking at this point. You're probably going to go get a guy in the draft early on to pair alongside him if you don't get a Rico Dowell or you don't get a Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I mean, even just taking a look down here, look, I think White is going to go where he thinks he could start. Algier is also going to go somewhere where he thinks he could start.
Sure.
And there are openings for that possibility. And I think those two guys are going to be a little bit cheaper, of course, and are not bad options. So, yeah. And then, like you said, Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, Dobbins, nobody could trust him. And then you mentioned the top two. Of course, Etienne's not going anywhere. Okay. So offensively, now let's move over to the defensive side and take a look here. And we see a lot more guys on defense. So out of these guys, well, you mentioned Barnett. What's up with him?
If you can get him for another 1 year, like $6 million deal, they'll do that. If not, this is a draft class that has enough talent in rounds 3 and 5 to where you can go get somebody to play the exact same role. So it'll be pricing will be the really big storyline with a guy like him.
Then you got veterans like Autry, Rankins. You mentioned Rankins, so that's someone they're going to want to bring back, correct?
Rankins is the priority. Like, if you were to ask me of anyone currently on the roster that I think that they will guarantee do everything in their power to bring back, it's Sheldon Rankins.
Okay. Fudukasi, Settle, Autry, any of those guys, not big deals.
Settle, I think, would be interesting because if he did a good job before the injury, he's coming off a season-ending injury. You think that you're going to get the same production? Because Tommy Togiai killed it this year in his place. If you release Mario Edwards, now there is a hole for defensive tackle. So bringing him back on another prove-it 1-year deal would be really smart. Fudukasi barely played. He was barely a part of the lineup. Same thing with Kurt Heinisch and Naquan Jones. So I think all of them are going to get cut. And then Autry may retire. I mean, he's 37 years old. So he's an older player that I just don't think is going to have a big role in the NFL that much longer.
And then linebacker, what's going on with Harris? Has he just been a bust?
He dealt with injuries all of 2024. And then this past year, they bring in EJ Speed. He looks a lot better. He plays a lot cleaner. He does a lot more things. And ultimately, he took over the Christian Harris role. So I think that both probably are going to be free agents. Speed, if there is one to bring on back, would be the one they would target. But that's what you're looking at. Harris, I think, is going to be a free agent.
And will they try to bring back either Stewart or Bryant in the backfield?
Bryant, probably, because if he's cheap and he was in the practice squad, they elevated. So it would make sense if you want to bring him on back just for a camp body. And then if he fights his way onto the active roster, cool. Massive win. Stewart's interesting because Stewart, again, was a guy that was used as a special teams ace. Like, he had been a part of the organization since 2022 underneath Lovie Smith and 2021 underneath Lovie Smith and David Culley. But he was here as a gunner and as a special teams standout. And then they bring in CJ Gardner-Johnson, and Gardner-Johnson's supposed to be the replacement for Eric Murray, who leaves in free agency for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He gets cut 3 games in because he does not get along with anybody inside that building. And so MJ Stewart has to play a bigger role, and he's fine, but you could probably upgrade. But then he gets hurt. So is he going to be back on a very team-friendly, once again, you're here to compete for starting reps, but you'll be a special teams guy? Or is he going to test the market the way that Eric Murray did? Like, that's what you're looking at when it comes to a guy like MJ Stewart. I don't know, because I don't know what his market is right now. He was playing really good before the calf injury, and then he got hurt, and then he was out of sight, out of mind, and people kind of forgot that he was on the field.
And one more. He didn't play all season, of course. Jimmy Ward. What's going on with Jimmy Ward?
Jimmy Ward is, in my opinion, not going to be in the NFL much longer.
Okay.
So that's again, I'm not reporting anything. I'm not saying I've heard anything. He's had 2 season-ending injuries. He was arrested for very, very, very interesting things off of the field.
Yeah.
His name has, for the most part, been exonerated from anything that would keep him out of the league. But the NFL has still got to clear him, and then he would have to, once again, be picked up by another organization. I do not think he will be back with the Texans next year.
Tommy Townsend, he's a good punter, right?
He's fine. I mean, if you can upgrade, by all means do so. If you can't upgrade, bringing him back for another year, not the worst thing possible. He was better in 2025 than he was in 2024. So that's a win. But still, you got to look at everything that comes your way.
And how was the special teams?
Jalen Noel was awesome. So much so that Braxton Berrios, who they signed to be the return guy, barely played this past season. And Tremont Smith has been the gunner that they really like, and he's under contract for another year. So Berrios, I do not believe, will be back next season. If he is, he'll be very much on a vet minimum deal, but he's not going to be the return man. He is just going to be a camp body that ends up hopefully having some type of role.
Are there any play before we get into the final part, which are going to be the top needs? Are there any young players? We'll start on offense that you people outside of Houston may not realize are developing players that the Texans franchise they have high hopes for to be even bigger contributors in the next year or two.
I mean, Tank Dell out of sight, out of mind, they still believe is going to be a threat for the team and maybe even the number 2. Brevin Jordan, they signed to 2 extensions after season-ending injuries, so they still believe that he can have a role with the team. I think that Jaden Higgins came on really strong in place of Nico Collins at times this past year with injuries, so quality number 2. And Ariante Ursary, they believe is good enough to be a franchise left tackle. So young guys offensively that they think can have roles. Woody Marks, same thing. Maybe they won't be household fixtures, but they will be solid contributors in 2026.
Defense, same question.
I mean, Will's going to get paid this offseason, and he's earned it. I think that he's arguably the 3rd or 4th best pass rusher in the NFL, and he is definitely, I think, the best young pass rusher in the NFL that hasn't been paid. So he's one. If Kamari Lassiter started for any other team in the NFL that didn't have a number 1 corner, he would be the number 1. I think he's a top 15 player at the position. And then you look at the development of Kalen Bullock. I don't know if anybody improved more their overall game than Caleb Bullock this past year. Because Bullock has always been known as a rangy center fielding ball hawking safety. And he still is that. But he got a little bit bigger. He didn't lose much of his speed. He was a more reliable tackler. And you throw that in with Jalen Petrie playing in the nickel. The Texans, if they can figure out the strong safety position with however they go about it, free agency, the draft, this is going to be far and away the best secondary in the NFL by a country mile, and it's not even going to be particularly close.
Okay. And any of those other guys, like at the far end of the depth chart, the no-namers that they still have hope for?
Tommy Togiai is going to be a dude that you got to remember. They love him in Houston. They think he is a phenomenal player. They absolutely think that his upside is through the roof. They believe with the contract that he's on, it's one of the best bargain prices in the NFL. He started off as a practice squad guy and worked his way on up. He's been a very, very, very nice find in the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's nice. Those things happen. So, and not a surprise that it happened with the Houston Texans defensive staff. That's for sure. Okay, let's move on to the needs now. So, is there a absolute 100% top need that every Houston Texans fans knows is the priority this offseason? Or no?
No, I mean, like there is, but it's like it's so hard, Greg, because of you have to answer one question. 71, right there on the screen. Where is he playing next year? That answers the next part. Because of if you're saying he is going to be a right tackle and we plan on keeping him at right tackle, then your biggest needs are going to be both guard positions and center on the offense with a blocking tight end and a running back as your other ones.
Yeah.
But if he's going to be playing guard, then you have right guard, center, long-term right tackle, blocking tight end, running back number 2. So it's like offensively, those are your needs. Noel, Dell are going to be playing in the slot at wide receiver. You're going to bring in a veteran at wide receiver to pair alongside with Higgins and Collins and Hutchinson as just a camp body that probably makes the active roster, but you're not spending big on that. Backup quarterback's fine. It really is just, you got to answer the Tyus Howard question. Where is he playing next year? Because the second you tell me where he is playing, everything else kind of comes into the line. But let's just say it's based off of where you guys have him now, Ourlads. Right guard, what?
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying, let's just say keep it where he is at Ourlads at left guard. So The top 5 needs in order offensively, I would go right guard number 1, because I think you could bring back Trent Brown and call it a day for a vet minimum. Number 2, I would go running back number 2. Number 3, I would go right tackle. Number 4, I would go blocking tight end. And number 5, I would go competition at center.
Okay, that's on offense. Okay. So on defense.
Number 1, I think, is probably defensive tackle, only because of what you don't have signed right now. Like, the second you bring back Sheldon Rankins and Tim Settle Jr., it probably still is a need, but it's not the top need, but it's number 1 right now. I think strong safety is number 2. Okay. I think that you at least got to indulge yourself in the conversation about what you need in that spot. Third linebacker, number 3.
What role?
Just the sub package linebacker, a guy that can either play the run or a guy that you would want in coverage plays. Because Henry Toto is going into a contract year. So you don't know if he's going to be back afterwards. So that would be one. I would probably say nickelback depth would be number 4. And then number 5, probably situational pass rusher number 3. Like, that would be where I'm at right now.
Okay. So, and overall, it's probably what? Offensive line first, because I know we can't answer the question you posed. So offensive line first, running back would be second.
Right now, I'd go defensive tackle, just because of
second.
With everyone who is going to be available, and knowing that you could get a running back like a Jadarian Price in round 2.
Yeah, that's true. If you're not going to get Love, then
you'll still be fine. I don't know if you'll feel good about not getting a defensive tackle outside of the first 40 picks. Like a Lee Hunter from Texas Tech is one I've seen mocked recently. That's one you got to consider probably at 38. So I'd go defensive tackle at number 2, running back at number 3. I'd go safety at number 4. And I'd go blocking tight end at number 5. I think right now that's where you got to look.
Excellent. Always a great job, Cole. Thank you very much for doing this as always. What's the latest? What are you working on? I'm assuming everything we talked about.
Free agency around the corner. So I'm just going to go ahead and probably watch 1,000,000 hours of tape on players that will never sign with Houston. And then I'll watch 1,000,000 hours of tape of guys that the Texans will not draft. But if you want to check it out, go visit TexansWire.com. Go listen to me on morning radio here in Houston, The Morning Drive with Dan and Cole, Sports Talk 790, 6 to 10 daily. You can also listen to me on Space City Saturday, where I talk all things H-Town sports, 11 to 1. And give me a follow at Mr. Cole Thompson.
I'll let you go, Cole. Thank you very much for doing this. We'll look forward to talking to you after the draft.
Anytime, Greg. Thanks for having me, bud.
Thank you. All right, that's Cole Thompson again. Unless something really big happens, we won't put Cole until after the draft, and then we'll take a look at the entire offseason for Houston. And we have links in the description of this video for a lot what Cole just basically went through regarding where you could find him, content, podcasting, things of that nature. So check out the links in the description of this video for that. And tomorrow we are going to talk more NFL with David Harrison. We're going to talk to him of the Washington Commanders, a Locked On Commanders podcast. So that's tomorrow. I believe we have that scheduled for 4:00. And we'll have our college basketball weekly show Friday night. That will be probably about 8:00 in the evening. And I believe that wraps it up, because we did our horse racing show yesterday. Usually it's on Thursdays, but that frees me up because I have an awful lot to do. So good for me. Unlike Cole, who's watching a little Latvia USA hockey, I'll be checking out the PGA Tours event at Pebble Beach. So I don't know who's more of a nerd, or a geek, but I'll let you decide. Let us know what's on your mind, questions, comments for Cole, anything that's on your mind. I'll definitely forward them if they're fun enough and also informative enough, or any questions at all. Especially comments are great. We always appreciate those. But if you have any questions for Cole, I'll definitely forward them to Cole, and Cole can answer those questions for you. And don't forget also to keep an eye on us all the way through the draft over with the Ourlads Football Network. On the Ourlads Football YouTube channel. We've already, as I showed you, we already had our first mock draft show. We're going to do a second one probably in about another several weeks. We have to get through the combine. So once we're through the combine, we'll do a second mock draft, and that'll get us an opportunity, because I know we've already had some comments on the mock draft, which we're totally cool with. regard like, oh, that player's never going to my team, or what. Just remember that it's a January mock draft. So, and these guys, Dave and John, would never even, they don't want to participate in those because they know it's way too early. They still have a lot of film to get through. They still have to go through these all-star games and the combine and all of that. But, you know, they do their best. And I think what's really cool about the comments is that does give, whether they want to use it or not, I do, but that gives them an opportunity to get the perspective of every team's fan base, as well as these interviews that I do with Cole and the 31 others. And that's helpful. That's really helpful because we don't have all of the answers, obviously. But this is the reason why I like to do these interviews. And it's not just to do them. It is to make sure that we can get the best information possible from the analysts who are following their respective teams 365 days a year, because they are the ones that know best about their teams, not us. Anyway, you too, because you're a fan of your team, and I hope you enjoyed this one for you Texans fans. Okay, so again, Washington tomorrow, and then before I go, I'm just going to give you a quick note of who's coming up the following week. That will be, right now we have Jacksonville coming up, already scheduled for next Thursday night with Travis Holmes of BigCatCountry.com. So that's the only one that is scheduled next week. But we're going to be the ones that are coming soon: Cleveland, Indianapolis, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Carolina, Chicago, Denver. Those are probably the ones that are coming the soonest. And then who knows? Just because I didn't name a team doesn't mean that we won't be doing one of those interviews relatively soon as well. But we will get in all 32 team analyst interviews here on the Ourlads Football Network and over here at Perline TV. So for Cole Thompson and Greg DePalma, thanks for tuning in once again. And do what this guy's asking you to do. That would be really helpful. And we'll see everybody next time.